2012, developed and published by Supercell for mobile phones, was that of Clash of Clans. The premise of the game was that a player would be in charge of a village and would have to farm and use resources to develop the village's defenses as well as forces to attack other villages or to defend itself from attacks by other players. Upon release, the reception to the game were popular, as at the time the concept of the clans that the player could or would join to contribute forces to help attack or defend against other clans, or even home bases, were unique. The dynamics of the game were highly in-depth and relatively complex for a free-to-play phone game of the time. But as time progressed, criticisms of the game emerged, with casual players complaining that the game was too difficult, as well as more experienced players complaining that upgrade times for various armaments would eventually be that of weeks, and being constantly attacked by other players were essentially guaranteed losses. Eventually in 2018, Supercell introduced the Master Builder character as well as the village of the Master Builder, which was that of a new village for players to explore, use, and upgrade. Rather than fully address the problems of the game of the time, the builder base was seen as an attempt to possibly bring back players whom had left the game, and to distract players from the problems that caused the Master Builder to be conceived to begin with by Supercell. The problems went further, with newer or lower level players essentially being forced to play with the builder's village, while more experienced or higher level players not necessarily using the alternate village at all. People were mentioning that the Master Builder was essentially that of a throwaway character to bring back attention to the game, as well as the fact that soon after the village's introduction, there were no real updates or improvements for the sub-village. Eventually, Supercell made updates to the main village, as well as patched some of the problems that had plagued the game for higher level play. But gamers as well as critics still didn't like the idea that the Master Builder, which was an event to hype in the game, essentially turned the Master Builder into a common builder for use by the player in the main village. Players complained that the Master Builder didn't really add much to the lore or premise of the game, and that the Master Builder himself didn't want to reside within his own village. He mentioned to the player that he desired to go to their village, and upon a certain amount of completion of the village, he built a robot to manage it, while the Master Builder then traveled to the player's village and, as mentioned, became an extra builder for the player to use. Even the Master Builder's village, once fully upgraded, would essentially be useless, and there would be no cause to use at all. A character could be overrated yet hated because they were conceived of to bring attention to an old game.